Hi there, I'm Anne-Marie Cheney, author and pattern designer and lover of both modern and traditional styles. I love to take the bright colors of modern fabrics and combine them with the traditional looks, like this Granny's Porch pattern you see here behind me. This is my new pattern that helps you clear out your scrap bins. We're making tons of granny square blocks in this quilt in a couple different sizes. And I wanted to show you how I square up my blocks, because when we sew them together, there's all these points we need to trim off. So I'm going to give you a couple tips to help you do that. Let's head over to the cutting table. Okay, so here we are, and we're ready to square up our block. We have already sewn together our rows. The 7 rows have been sewn together, and then when we get ready to trim it, we turn the block on point for squaring up. I have a rotating cutting mat here. I always like to use a rotating cutting mat if my blocks are small enough for squaring up. It allows us to turn the mat instead of having to reposition the fabric when we need to cut on all 4 sides. So that's really handy. I also have my rotary cutter and a square ruler with some washi tape. And what I've done is I've taken the washi tape and put that along our cut size. So in this case, we need 8-inch unfinished blocks. So I've gone and placed that tape just on that 8-inch line so it makes it easier to find. A lot of times when we cut up a lot of these blocks, square up a lot of these blocks, it's easy to get confused as to which line you're looking at. So I just kind of eliminate a lot of that extra thinking that needs to be done just by placing that tape along those lines. And then also, if you look here, I've taken a black Sharpie and marked a dot in the center of our block. So this is just on the 4-inch line. It's a visual guide to help you, again, center up your blocks. So when we're ready to square them up, we'll go ahead and place the ruler on top of our block. And we're going to look at the center and try and place that in the center of the green square. Now we want to use our middle lines to help line up the block. As best we can, look at the horizontal line and try and get it to intersect all of these block points. And the same with the vertical line that goes through the middle. Get that to line up with those intersections. Now, this isn't always going to be exactly on point for every single intersection, because a lot of the times when we put all of these squares together, it kind of gets pulled out of square a little bit. But that's okay. You know, as long as we get it as best we can, you'll end up being fine if we cut an 8-inch square. The other thing you want to look for before you trim is that you have at least a 1/4 inch of material past each one of these block intersections here, because if we have less fabric than that, those corners will end up getting pinched off in the seam allowance. So once we've got it centered horizontally and vertically and checked all of our outer points, we're ready to trim. I'm left-handed, so I go on the left and then on the top, clear away the excess. Now we can rotate our mat 180 degrees, and now we'll use those washi tape guides to place those on the edge of the block. Again, looking at your centers, making sure everything looks nice there. And then we'll trim up those last 2 sides. And there's what your block looks like when it's done. Now don't worry if you have some of these overhangs. A lot of that will disappear in your seam allowance later. But now you have a nice square to sew together with all of your other granny squares. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.